Welcome to the Confessions of a Reluctant Caregiver podcast. We're happy you're here. On the podcast, we're certain that you'll relate to the caregiver stories and find comfort with your honorary sisters. Now, before we start, I want to remind you to go to our website, confessionsofareluctantcaregiver.com, and sign up for our newsletter. It's full of useful information that you can immediately use. Now, let's learn more about today's guest. Hey, Jay.
Hey, Nat.
Guess who we have today?
Every time you ask me that, I show up clueless. I don't even know. It's always a surprise.
I love how you just come to work and you're like, hey, who are we going to talk to? And I'm
What
like,
are we doing
well, what are we
today?
doing today? So, we were just kind of talking about this. We have a special guest today.
Yes.
And he is a brother in care because we have the male representing, we've got Bill Cohen, who is representing the entire male population as caregivers.
Yes.
We've got,
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you, Bill, for raising your hand to say, pick me. I am also a winner. So you're happy.
I am honored to be here. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're so excited to have you. So you know what? I don't know how many people know Bill. So Jay, why don't you tell our listeners about Bill?
Well, I'm going to, Bill, you're not going to be offended by this, but I'm going to say that you are a unicorn in the industry. So take that as positive.
A unicorn.
Because, you said you were somewhat of a reluctant male caregiver for your mom, your late mom, Sheila. For 10 years, you advocated and you cared for her during a battle with Alzheimer's. But today you're the owner of Cohen Caregiving Support Consultants. And I love that you say that is a passionate encore career, because that is not what you trained for. And there are a lot of us out there that did not train for caregiving or did not plan on it becoming.
Do you not go to college for caregiving, Jay? You don't go to college for caregiving? You don't sign up and think this is going to be awesome?
No, I don't think so.
We all have an honorary doctorate.
That's true, Bill. That's very true. So today, I guess I have so many questions, but Bill, you took those years and you said you built this encore career out of a journey of exhausting pain and loss. And that's honest.
That's a lot.
But you share your story and that journey, and you answer questions and concerns. You provide advice. You work with, you're a volunteer with the Alzheimer's Association. You do all kinds of stuff.
He runs groups too.
Yes, with all of this experience that you picked up. And that's why we're so excited to have you here. You're a totally different view, because while there are loads of male caregivers out there, there aren't a lot that they don't see themselves, I guess. There's not a lot that we get an opportunity to talk to. So we are honored to have you here. And we're excited to hear about your mom, Sheila, because you wrote some beautiful things about her in your bio as well. So thanks for coming on.
Actually, let's start with a boring stat.
Ready.
Oh, let's do it.
But it's actually very revealing. And I heard it actually from Teepa Snow the last time she was in Portland. I think most people have probably heard her or her approach quite often, that back about the time that I was taking care of my mom back in the mid-2000s to start, about 1 every 5 caregivers for dementia were men.
Wow.
Now it's more like 1 out of every 3.
Wow.
So it is growing. Men are stepping into that more frequently. I'm seeing it with my clients. I'm seeing it in my support groups, and that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Sometimes I've even had clients where it's 4 brothers.
Wow. No kidding. Well, and it shows that
find a woman. We can't do this. Got to find a woman to do this. Right?
Oh, that is so sweet. Yeah. I think that's so important, because there are so many men out there stepping up and taking care of moms. I will say this, Bill. My husband is one of 3 brothers. And when their mom was ill, all 3 of them absolutely took turns in caring for their mom and providing support for her to age in place until she ultimately passed. And so those 3 guys absolutely, and they are like, they would prescribe themselves as being men's men but when it comes to their mama, like those boys took care of their mama. And so I don't know, do you wonder why more men don't like step up and maybe raise their hand and say, I'm a caregiver too? Is it, you think it's the same as women just not really realizing they're caregivers?
No, I think it's because we're brought up without being in that role traditionally.
Yeah.
Okay.
You men are in the caregiver, nurturing, caretaking, whatever term you want to use.
Yeah.
And so only to be thrust into that role, reluctantly or otherwise.
Yeah.
I'm sure a lot of men, well, that's not something that I do. That's not something I handle. I think what's the key here is, and we can talk about this a little bit more, is men are going to go about it a different way. Again, generally, women have been more in the nurturing role. By the way, no kids here. So no previous experience.
Wow.
So you're saying you don't have any children?
No, correct.
Convenient. Me or JJ, neither do we. We just have dogs, and I know you have cats. We barely keep them alive, but again, still qualified to be a caregiver.
Absolutely.
Like, with no kids, still qualified.
Right. So we were actually, that old acronym DINKS, dual income, no kids.
Yeah.
And then when we both retired from government jobs, DRINKS, dual retirement income, no kids. Cheers.
Dinks and drinks, dual income, no kids.
Yeah.
I'm using that. I'm a dink right now, working towards drinking. So,
Lord.
So men, though, are going to handle it. Women are going to be more, I guess, empathetic, feelings, I guess, showing compassion for the person. Men tend to look at it more like a job, like a task, a series of things. I can do this, put it in this order. Okay, I did this, now I'll do this, now I'll do that. And the other problem is that they tend to not seek help or go to support groups or go to a counselor. So let's say they don't have any siblings. They're the guy. Are they going to seek support? No, I can handle this.
Yeah.
No,
I'm strong. I can handle it.
Yeah.
Don't need any help.
So
which is obviously wrong, because as we know, caregiver burnout is a real thing.
Absolutely.
no, you're absolutely right. And in all seriousness, besides, I'm not going to read a map. We've got Google now, so that's helpful. So nobody's losing man points on looking at a map and asking for directions. So total stereotypical. We love our guys here. So let's kind of rewind the clock and let's get back to where it all kind of started. So is it you and siblings? You are an only child. Kind of set the stage for us.
I think he's the oldest, Natalie.
Do you think he's the oldest?
Mm-hmm.
Bill, are you the oldest?
I am the oldest. And
I can feel it. JJ knew it. She called it oldest Bill.
I will say, as part of the story, that's a snippet of it, but it goes along with what we were just talking about, that people say, Bill, do you have any siblings? It's better that he's not involved.
Got it.
If mom had given him power of attorney, I don't think he's going to hear this podcast, by the way. Mom probably would have ended up on Medicaid a lot sooner.
Yeah.
It's complicated. They were both artists. She was a printmaker. He was a musician, and it was enabling codependency. They just were wired differently. So that's part of it. But I will say that my family in general is very supportive, and my wife was very supportive. But I was the key guy.
Yeah.
So whether I was reluctant or not, that's hard to say, because going back, so around the mid 2000s, and what I like to say is, if you had told me 18, 19 years ago, what was going to transpire and that I'd be sitting here talking to you and doing what I'm doing, I'd say, you're nuts. You couldn't make up this scenario. So as you know, although I'm in Oregon and I'm a native New Englander, my mom was in Biloxi, Mississippi.
Yeah.
As I say, I'm obviously not from there.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I can tell you're not from there. You're not from Nolans.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I lived in New Orleans for a couple of years. Yes. So around 2004 or 5, mom was in the caregiver role for my late stepfather, and she was showing signs of something. She wasn't taking care of the house, the finances, the taxes. She was paranoid, confused, agitated, some memory loss. And like I said, she was in the caregiver role.
Yeah.
And we were thinking, well, maybe she's just tired, stressed, getting a little older. She was in her early 70s.
Yeah.
Not far off from where I am now, actually.
Yeah.
And we were thinking, well, if my stepfather, who is on and off hospice, passed away, I know you can relate to this, but yours was sudden, right?
Yeah.
If he passed away or went into a care community, would she bounce back? We never got that opportunity because what happened in August 2005 on the Gulf Coast and New Orleans?
Katrina.
The house they had lived in for over 30 years. They were evacuated. They were safe, completely swept away in the storm surge. I don't know if you've ever been in Biloxi, but there's the back bay where Keesler Air Force Base is. The storm surge went right around into the back bay, just took it out. If they had burned that house, it had been on stilts or maybe 50 feet higher, and it would have survived. That much difference. So needless to say, the trauma, she went back to the house fully expecting to be there. It survived everything, including Camille and some other storms.
Yeah.
The trauma of seeing it gone exacerbated, accelerated whatever was coming on.
Wow.
So she evacuated with step family to Wilmington, North Carolina.
Yeah.
I started doing some cross-country travel and long-distance caregiving. I'll tell you a quick story, which I think illustrates very well how serious Alzheimer's can be. And we didn't know for sure what it was yet, but it became obvious soon after. So they're like within days of the storm, and they're moving to North Carolina. She was on the driveway trying to escape. My stepbrother and her did not get along very well. Fortunately, and she was very agitated. Fortunately, another family member gets her on the phone, says, Sheila, if you don't get back in the house, you may end up somewhere you do not want to be. Meaning like institutionalized. She got that message, still had enough cognition. I was on the next possible flight. I was planning on getting back there anyway and to see her. I get there. She's happy to see me. She's relatively calm. And I said, Mom, this is a little bit of the confession. I said, Mom, we're going to go see a new doctor tomorrow. No, we were going to the ER at the hospital. And this is what, and some people, of course, will use the term therapeutic or white lies. Some people know Rachel Wunderlin. I love her term, embrace the reality. Use the term compassionate deception. Because I wasn't doing any harm to her. I wasn't telling her the whole truth.
Yeah.
I was just withholding some information. So we get to the hospital, go to the ER. We were there for about 10 hours. They put us in an adjoining conference room. They couldn't get the geriatric physician to see her yet. It was the hardest emotional day and night of my life because I had my sweet mother was acting like a caged animal. She was, the tension on her face was just impalpable. It was horrible.
Yeah.
Finally, they get her treated, get her on some medication, admit her, which is what I was insisting upon, if not demanding.
Right.
And the next morning, I go to see her. I get off the elevator. She sees me and says, there you are. There's my savior. She didn't want to be mad at me. She was scared.
Yeah.
She wasn't herself. But it illustrates what that disease can do. And this wasn't even the worst of the disease. This was the early stages.
Yeah.
So we did, she eventually moved into a care facility with my stepfather. He was still alive. He was there as well. Then she was down in Delray Beach with one of my aunts for about a year and a half, also an assistant. But the plan was to move her out here to Oregon at some point. I started attending a support group through the Alzheimer's Association. I started seeing a counselor. And
what made you decide to do that, if you don't mind? Because like right now, you're a long distance caregiver. You're trying to figure out what's going on. You're the primary caregiver along with some kind of like secondary backup, like a best supporting cast of people. Because I hear you say she moved into assisted living down with another family member. You've got other people kind of checking in on her. What made you decide to go to a support group?
I wanted to learn. I wanted to hear what other people were going through. And I may be filtering that a little bit, what I know about support groups now. It's a safe, confidential helpful situation. There were a lot of people who had already gone through it, lost their loved ones, as well as people who were in those stages or early, like myself. And I would like to say that if that not been a good experience, when mom passed away, I might have just walked away and say, I'm done. But I saw the benefits of it, and it was very helpful. And I kept on going even after she passed away. I thought for a few months, I became the facilitator.
But okay, so I still want to go back for a second.
Yeah.
What was, because this is, I think, what people want to know.
Yeah.
What was beneficial in your opinion? Because you're in a group of people, you're in a group of strangers. So you've got confidentiality there, confidentiality on many levels, because you got like, nobody knows me.
Right.
So what was beneficial to you that had you come back time after time?
Yeah, just hearing from other people who have great advice, who have been through there. I mean, it's like one of the lines that I still use that I heard back then was, hey, if they get mad at you, don't worry. An hour later or the next day, you get to start all over again.
Yeah, that's true. It's like 50 first dates.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it's advice like that.
Yeah.
It's just reassuring. It was a place where you could just let your guard down. I still always have a box of tissue in my meetings, so that, because somebody's going to let it rip, men too.
Yeah.
Maybe not cry, but the emotions come out. You feel they get the sense very quickly that it's a safe place to talk and they can open up. Some people it takes a couple or a few or longer meetings before they really do. Man, just one woman recently who was joining us by Zoom, who first few times she came barely talked. 2 weeks ago, she just verbally vomited.
Yeah.
Only opened up and shared what she's gone through. And I let her have a lot of extra time exactly because of that.
But Bill, do you think
my groups are some like even Alzheimer's Association does have some specialized, like adult only, adult children, women only, men only, LGBT, whatever. Mine have always been all genders, all relationships, all stages, all dementia. Yeah.
Do you think that those places, we talk about them being safe places, and this is really an important part, at least for us, that you're able to get the advice, but people are also open and willing to say, this is, first of all, it's an awful disease, but I'm struggling with this. I'm angry, or I'm mad that my mom's going through this, or my spouse is going through that. Are people also able to voice those feelings in meetings like that?
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. It's okay.
And I see it all the time. I lead another group that I do every Saturday. Happens to be a care community directly across the street, and we alternate between in person and virtual. Now, going back to, I also got on the Alzheimer's Association website and did a lot of reading, because although at that point I was long distance. Think about all the things you have to handle in the aftermath of a hurricane, besides your mom's care and the logistics and everything else. Insurance, real estate, taxes, care, you name it. Yeah. I dealt with it. So I became the primary caregiver in that respect, not just her welfare. I did, like I said, I had support from my two aunts and some cousins. All kinds of people did pitch in along the way. And sometimes just a matter of asking. Yeah. A lot of people are hesitant to ask.
That's the truth. Yeah. So day to day, did you step in? I know we talk about, we are long distance caregivers as well. Day to day, did there come a point when she did come to Portland, or how did that care continue?
Mm-hmm. So I didn't mention I was working full time.
Oh yeah.
I mean, of course you're working full time.
Absolutely.
Minor detail. Yeah. I was working for the state of Oregon, a completely unrelated job, as we alluded to earlier. Mm-hmm. My previous two careers weren't related either. It was in financial services. I was in the hotel business. But what was the common thread? Helping people, customer service. So as she progressed a bit, we realized that, and this is a tough one for people, either for moving or for moving into housing. Mm-hmm. No, it's hard to find that Goldilocks just right, either too early, too soon, whatever. But the key was that she was mobile, ambulatory, and she had enough cognition where she could, handle the trip. So first, my aunt from New York, Manhattan, flies down to Delray flies her out here. She takes a look around. She wasn't against me coming to me because, we had a very close, loving relationship.
Yeah.
And fortunately, she looked at the place that I had in mind. It was nonprofit, faith-based, the assisted living side. One of those places looks like a hotel.
Yeah.
So she said, "This is nice, Bill. I could stay here. Can I afford it?" Another compassionate deception or white lie. Yes, Mom.
No problem.
Absolutely.
No problem.
That's
you're moving here.
Your finance background there says, absolutely, I will figure it out. That's my side. I will make it work.
Right. And it was the only place that I wanted her to be because it had a great reputation. It still does. I'll skip forward in a moment. There was another story I was going to tell, but I'll come back to it. So she goes back to Florida. I fly and go and get her about a month later and bring her out here. And they said that she would probably not last a year in assisted living, but we will admit her the way they assessed her. And they were right. 10 months later, middle of a norovirus quarantine, she was very social when she got out of her room, but most of the time she needed some coaching, some prodding. But when you're suddenly taken out of your routine, you get antsy. And she started wandering and doing some dangerous behaviors like eating lotions.
Yeah.
So the staff said, "Bill, hate to tell you this, but your mother is going to need 24/7 care. She cannot be left alone."
Right.
This was another very difficult period. And it's also a place where my wife stepped in, where we put her in the daytime. This is like for 2 weeks leading up to the move into memory care. So let me forget that little story. We put her in adult day care for the day. Each night, alternating, we would go spend the night with my mom in her room to make sure she was safe.
Right.
And then at the end of the day, we'd go home, get ready to go to work for a few hours, and then the other would have the next night. I barely saw my wife for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
She stepped up and helped out.
Yeah.
At the end of the 2 weeks, and this is when she was going on Medicaid. So it was a perfect storm, right? Another one.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So going to memory care, we move her over there. We did, again, put her in adult daycare, got some help from friends with a truck and all that stuff. And everything ended up in her garage again, except for the few things she could have in her room, small room. I know you talked about that in earlier episodes. You get it. You got rid of everything. Well, we lost everything.
Yeah.
One piece of paper. I'll never forget that. And we do it in congregate care for adolescents, which is sad, equally sad to think about our children in foster care who only have a paper's worth of items. Ultimately, when you go into an assisted living or to skilled nursing, you also go down to one piece of paper with all your earthly possessions.
Pretty much.
It's such a reality. It's like slaps you right in the face.
Exactly. So what we ended up doing is after everything was moved out, we take her with the head nurse, like she's getting a tour of the memory care. Now, this place was an older building. It looked like the old nursing homes. It's been since renovated. It looks really nice now. So we walk in. Hey, how do you think, Sheila? Do you like this? Yeah, this is nice. This is nice. And we just left. Lori, my wife, and I go out to lunch. We said, that worked out pretty well. We made one mistake. We went back. She saw me, and now she was really mad at me. How dare you move me without my permission? Calmed her down a little bit, and we left. And they said, it's better to just let her adjust. Let us learn about her, adjust to her. I'm sure we will love Sheila. She had that big smile. And she did. She eventually did, because the one upside to dementia, as things progress, they tend to become less aware and a little easier to handle. It's sad, but that part gets easier.
I'll say this.
She was in memory care for 4 years and passed away at age 83, 10 years ago, by the way.
Wow. So Sue Ryan talked about that, where the staff, when she moved her husband into memory care, they said, we'll call you when we think he's ready. And that's a hard thing, I think, especially because that was her husband. This is your mom. And you're trying to think, but why am I not needed? And the reality is that stop making it about you.
Yeah.
Because she really did.
And it would be a reminder. I want to go home.
Yeah.
I want to go home. I want to go home. Right?
Yeah.
Wherever home is. Yeah.
That's right. That's exactly right.
So, like I said, she passed away at 83. And going on to my journey, that if I thought that after she passed away, that would be it. And like I said, I became the facilitator of that support group. I started getting involved with the Alzheimer's Association, doing the fundraising, the walk each year, and advocacy at the Capitol for more funds and for research. And as I approached retirement 6 years ago now, I thought, well, I'll just do more volunteering. But I came across this concept of a caregiving support consultant. And as you said my words, became my encore career. Because what I was doing before was not fulfilling. There were some elements I liked about it. I got to travel over the state of Oregon, but it was strictly for the compensation of the benefits.
Yeah. So when you talk to people, because there's so many caregivers out there, Bill, that don't know there are such a thing, consultants. We have so many friends, people that we've met, Elizabeth Miller, just all kinds of people out there. They're caregiving consultants. But when you talk to people, everyone that is a caregiver could definitely use a consultant. What are things that, we have listeners out there that you hear that what got you to be a consultant, a feeling that you knew this is a normal feeling and people need to recognize that. And that's what took your heart to going into consulting.
That's a great question, because going back to 2005, and it hasn't changed much. I'll preface that even if you get a diagnosis, and often you don't with dementia, or at least a clear-cut one, where's the support? Where's the resources? Where's the information? It's kind of like, well, we think they have some kind of dementia. Good luck. Keep them safe and out of pain and comfortable, that type of thing.
Wow.
And so I felt that sorely lacking. And pretty much anecdotally, it's still that way. The closest to what I do and a few other people around the country, and you mentioned one or two, is the geriatric care managers, the aging life care managers. Mm-hmm. Their focus is the medical side. Those are medical professionals, social workers, et cetera. But they do put together the care team, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So the problem is, who's saying to the caregiver, like us, how are you doing? What support and resources do you need? Right. And that's all they're lacking. They feel lost and abandoned.
Exactly.
Medical profession is doing a very poor job in this.
Exactly. You're like preaching.
Yes, it's hard for them to come up with a good diagnosis. Yes, the treatment options are precious and few, and they're pretty much ineffective. Still, we're getting closer to some things. It'll probably be not a magic pill that takes care of everything, but some combination of medication and lifestyle choices. If you want to talk about why we think my mom got it, we can talk about that. Because that is a whole nother story.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, ladies, I need to interrupt for just a second to share about the Sisterhood membership. It's basically a sale every day. And the best part, it's free. Here's the details. We're partnering with our friends at Benefit Hub and other care partners to save you money. With over 200,000 participating companies across the U.S. and abroad, you'll find discounts at your favorite local stores, huge savings on vacations, amazing deals on home, auto, and supplemental insurances, and everything in between. Go to confessionsofareluctantcaregiver.com to sign up, and then definitely tell your friends about it. They can join too. Trust me, there's a discount for everyone. And don't forget, it's free. Okay, back to confessing.
When you work with people now, I mean, what are you with a caregiver? What do you hear? Like, what are some of the biggest frustrations? What are those common frustrations that people should say, it's okay that I feel this way? What do you hear from the people, the caregivers that you work with?
Some of it is logistical, like when is the right time to bring in care? When is the right time to look at housing options?
Mhm.
And sometimes, how do I handle the behaviors? How do I handle the repeated questions?
Now, does that come from experience? Did you have repeated?
Yeah.
So let's hear about
Here's
it.
my favorite.
Okay, let's have it.
This is kind of a little confession because it was you'll understand why. So the last time I took my mom to a movie, we spent half the time going to the bathroom.
Okay.
Which was challenging because I couldn't go in with her.
Right.
But we missed half the movie. Whatever it was, I missed it. I had to see it later on Netflix. So I'm thinking this is the last time I could take her to a movie.
Yeah.
But she would keep asking, are there any good movies out? Can we go to a movie? Instead of getting frustrated, oh, Mom, no, I can't take you, or, no, okay, maybe we'll go someday. But I just started saying whatever popped in my head in terms of a name. Titanic, Gone with the Wind, Butch Cassidy, Casablanca. She was getting an answer.
Yeah.
He didn't know any difference. There was no harm, right?
Right.
She didn't know Gone with the Wind was 70 years ago, right? Or 80. I was also keeping my sanity. And here's the confession. I'm having a little laugh at Mom's expense inside.
It's okay. It's okay.
It's 30 years ago, Mom.
It doesn't even matter. I think,
So use a little improv.
Exactly.
I think use a little improv. I have a friend of mine whose mom, she and her sisters are going through some stuff, and she posted a really good question. Like, her mom is onset for Alzheimer's, and I think she's trying to engage with her mom, for example, because her mom lives out of the state where she lives, and she's trying to think of things that she can do because conversations are hard, and she's trying to remain connected, I think. And she was like, what are things I can do with my mom virtually? And she was like, any games. And so, it was so cool because I posted it. Like I said, this is a great question. Like, how can you remain engaged with your loved one, especially if they've got memory issues?
Mm-hmm.
And so how do you help feel connected so that you don't get on the phone or FaceTime? Because it's probably going to be FaceTime. Which is easier, and you're able, and it's not like 3 minutes in, it's like crickets.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so, I'm assuming, beyond like consulting to help with, I don't know, like do this, like power of attorney, and think about this, think about this, think about this. Part of it is just, it's the logistics piece of it, but now you're getting into the emotional side and the touchy-feely side of, okay, this is going to be hard to go through. And so these are some tricks of the trade my own personal experience, I was able to do.
Well, and I'm going to talk about maybe two different areas of it. One of it is the frustrating behaviors, especially when it comes to dementia, especially Alzheimer's, is if you're going to ask somebody, Mom, do you want to do this? What do you think the answer is going to be?
No. Absolutely.
What do you want to do? I don't know. Right? So you really have to frame things not in terms of yes or no, but would you like to do this? Would you like to do that? Simplify it, A or B, two things you can be fine with, and just give them a simple choice.
Yeah.
Along the same lines, there are things that they always used to love to do or had an interest in, a hobby, and if it's cooking, what have you, break it down into something they can do simply. A small task, like if they were a good cook, like my mom was, and I learned from her, I'm the cook in the family, chopping vegetables or something, right? Give her something simple. But don't say, do this, do that, do that. But do one little thing in a quiet environment, set them up to pass, to succeed, not fail. But also have simple little games or tasks that they can have a lot of people talk about this, have a little basket to bring out. Oh, can you fold these towels for me?
Yeah.
Help me with these towels.
Yeah.
Rachel Wonderland talks about it. She uses that term. I love it. Or to give them a puzzle. It could be dominoes. It could be a puzzle. And it doesn't matter if they would do it like you or if they do it correctly. It's something to keep them occupied.
Yeah.
Rachel has a book, Creative Engagement. There's a caregiver course called Savvy Caregiver. And we use the term contented involvement.
I like that.
Yeah. Both are good. The other side of it is a lot of people just need someone to talk to.
Yeah.
Because they're exhausted and they're abandoned and they're isolated. And a lot of people say to me, Bill, I have a therapist, but you've been there. You get it. I need to talk to you.
Yeah.
Just off on the phone with a guy down in the south coast of Oregon today who's from Portland, but he's with his mom. And sometimes he just talks. It's a little bit of this or the legal, a little bit of the care, a little bit of, what are we going to do about the house, blah, blah. So he just wants to talk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that's when we feel I think it's the focus, we talk about relate, educate, inspire, laugh. And I think in the end, it's the relate, it's the shared experience, even if it is a bad experience. It's like, oh, good. It's not just me too, that the repeating just is driving me up the wall. Lorette, our bestie, is like, she would talk about that with her mom. And she was like, she's going to ask me this 30 more times. And she's like, okay. And, and how did she and her brother support one another as they were trying to support their mom? And I think that's so important, is to find your person. And I'm a social worker, but that doesn't mean it has to be someone with a license. Don't yell at me, social worker friends, because sometimes you need clinical help. I can tell you there have been times I felt like I need clinical help to help me through some parts of the really hard. And then sometimes I need something different. And I think a group also allows you, when in a group setting, there's a reason they're reimbursable and that people do lots of groups. It's that relating to other people, everyday people who put their pants on the same way, really does help.
Well, they shared that experience, I think. And, Bill, if we had that same, anyone that I've talked to that has a mom or a parent with Parkinson's, those people understand my issues. And it would be hard for me to go and talk to someone who was just saying, I'm sorry, your mom is sick. But when someone says, I understand you're out, your mom is perfectly fine, and then she has an attack and she can't walk and no one understands that, well, they get my frustration. And so I think that's why it's so important that the group work that you do, I think that's the reason for response to groups is so important.
I think one of the biggest things that I also help people with, because there's something I had to learn very quickly, that while I was caring for mom, it wasn't just a full-time job. I also had a narcissistic micromanager boss who was making my life miserable.
Narcissistic micromanager boss. Yes.
Nobody's ever had that, right?
No. Yes. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can do nothing right.
Yes. So you can imagine where my stress level was.
Oh my gosh.
It was sky high. So besides the counseling and the support group, et cetera, one of the things I started doing, and this is why I talk to people, self-care isn't selfish, it's vital.
Absolutely.
I started going for a regular massage, still do today. I don't consider it a luxury. I consider it a necessity.
Yeah.
Whatever works for you, meditation, yoga, go for a walk, what have you, but you need to find that time. The other thing with that Savvy Caregiver class that was really good was there was an exercise where we asked the caregivers, okay, if you had an hour, 4 hours, a whole day, a whole weekend, no caregiving responsibilities, what would you do with that?
Oh my God.
What would you like to do? I remember one woman who said to me after about the 2 hour mark, said, I can't envision that. I can't see letting go of my husband to take those things, that even though she needs it.
Wow.
I always hear about caregivers who, they took a weekend, they go to a hotel and all they did was sleep.
Wow.
Or watch Hallmark. I would watch Hallmark.
Right.
That's all I'd watch is unrealistic expectations of men. That's what I call the Hallmark Channel. I just sit there and watch how these people who don't have any income and live in great houses, and then they find romance, and then poof, they're ready to wed after 1 week. I would just sit there.
I gotta keep her off the TV. I gotta keep her off TV.
I can't watch,
Was
but
that
so
what
much
the appeal
Hallmark.
is? Okay, I was wondering.
Yeah, I know, right? Thank you, Hallmark, if you'd like to sponsor this episode.
So, Bill, just kind of just a question, your caregiving experience and with men in general, what differences do you think that you saw versus if you had a sister, for example, that would have taken care of your mom? What challenges do you think you saw being a son versus a daughter?
Well, for one, I always thought I would have liked to add a younger sister.
Okay, fair enough. Everybody
we'll be your sister.
Okay.
Done.
You get us.
Glad to be a sister. I think that's why I have a lot of female friends.
Got it.
Right.
And why the business is easy for me to go into.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure. I think my aunts really played that role.
Yeah.
Support. One was in New York, one was in Florida, and one moved out here and stayed. She take care of. So I didn't have to be with mom all the time. Besides, to my mother, if I could be there 24/7, and it wouldn't have been enough. So I didn't try. I went there like 2, 3, 4 times a week. My aunt went there other days. So the pressure wasn't there. I think I was still the point person. I have a financial background. It's hard to say really how it would be different if I had, but I think between my wife and my aunts, that role was filled. But I also, and I'm going to tell you a quick story. People they're always saying, how can I help? Right.
Mm-hmm.
And people say, oh, I'm fine. Don't worry. I'm okay. When they really could. Because if you make a list of all the things you have to do as a caregiver, I'm sure your younger sister has a ready list like this. What roles are you? You're a cook, you're a maid, you're this, you're all those things. If somebody asks, have a little, hey, can you pick up the laundry for me, the dry cleaning? You have a teenage son. Can they mow the lawn for me? Simple things, which is really not putting them out, but people are sometimes afraid to ask. And my example was at the end when mom was on hospice, another norovirus quarantine. Don't worry, the place was good, but just, this happens.
It's congregate care. Call it for what it is. People are going to get sick.
Like UTIs, right?
Yeah.
And it was in the last couple of weeks, the only people who were allowed besides the residents and the staff were my aunt and I, because they knew Sheila was close. Care was wonderful. The coffee was horrible. And Portland, the Northwest, we're coffee fanatics.
Yeah.
So we got plenty of local places. We don't need Starbucks.
Sorry about that, Starbucks. You can still sponsor us. You can redeem yourself.
Okay. All right. Okay. There are others. So I get on social media, on Facebook, and I said, can somebody please bring me a mocha latte? 2 people showed up from 2 different stands. One of them was from Starbucks.
Thank them. Thanks, guys.
Okay. It was okay. But all I had to do was ask.
That's right.
And they showed up at the front desk.
That's right.
And I know exactly who they were. And I still thank them today. I said, I still love you for doing that for me.
Isn't that funny? It is. You're right, Jay. I'm going to say it's the little things. Go ahead.
I think people want to help, Bill. And I think that's something that as caregivers, sometimes we overlook. When someone says, how can I help you? 99% of the time, they really do want to help. They just don't know what to do. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't have to be something big. They just ask them to do something. And I think that's our responsibility to just say, hey, can you grab me a coffee? Or, hey, I if you go to the store, I do need just a gallon of milk. And it is just a little thing about just helping. And that's human nature. That's just
drop off a dish, drop off a casserole or something.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. You know what? And we know that's what women and the men, but the women do well.
Oh, I can drop off a casserole.
Any
anywhere,
good
Bill.
Baptist is cooking a casserole.
We got the casserole.
We got the casserole.
Okay. You're gonna throw the religion card. You may know what Cohen is. You don't go empty-handed.
That makes sense to me.
You know what? That's every religion. We have the foundation. The foundation is not God. It is we know how to cook. we come with items. We come bearing food because honestly, food is the universal symbol of we love you. We're sorry. We celebrate.
It's faith and fellowship.
It is the epitome of I come with good tidings.
Yeah. It's faith and fellowship right there in a casserole.
You know what? I'm so glad that you said that. Come with food.
Here's another story that is food related, and maybe I don't know. We may be running out of time, but so my mom was a good cook. She learned from my grandmother, my father's mother, and Julia Child, Joy of Cooking, New York Times, all that stuff. So, and I learned some of those recipes. Years later, her tastes changed. I would say, "Hey, Mom, I made your dish. Did you put garlic in it?" "Yes, of course." "Then it's not my dish." She had forgotten that she put garlic in everything.
Oh.
So here's my validation. After she passed away, we did the celebration of life. About 3 or 4 months later, we had the immediate family over for dinner. I made 3 of her dishes that she used to bake. And afterwards, my brother says, "Bill, you nailed it." Because he would. I knew
stuff.
I love that. You
Good
know what?
Stuff.
I think Bill is such an honorary brother of ours.
I'll
Jay.
agree with that, Bill.
We don't have any brothers, and even the dogs were girls in the Elliott
That's true, Bill.
household.
So
our dad was
anytime.
It was a total dictatorship because there were no men, no testosterone, just our dad, but he was a big man and we love him. And so I think, and you know what's the sad part is he always wanted boys and he ended up with girls, even the dogs were girls. But
did he push you to get married early?
Yeah. Oh, Lord, no. No, we weren't allowed to date until we were 30 is what his hope was. So,
proverbial shotgun, huh?
Yeah, I know, right? So we took a couple of practice run at marriage between Emily and I. So when JJ's one and I'm all like, I had a starter or 2. So it's fine. So Jay, let's go into our favorite part.
Ready?
It's time for
all right.
sister questions.
Mine actually is an interesting, I read something in your bio that you, of course, it sounds like we're all foodies. So we're closing this up with a little food
love
action.
food.
So a food cart in Portland, which I am such a fan of. What's your favorite food cart?
Okay, well, I think it has to be, it's one over on the east side of Portland.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't have to, the name isn't important, but it's Keson, Kesone. She is Southeast Asia.
Uh-huh.
Laotian, Cambodian, and Vietnamese food. And
wow.
If you had even just Vietnamese, their combination of different food, ingredients, textures, spices, and herbs, spicy, cool, hot. It is just incredible what they put together. And when I'm over in that area of town, that's my go-to.
So we got food covered for Bill Nedley. He's good.
I feel like I have one more. I have a question and then I have a question. How long have you been married?
We will be. To do a quick calculation, 43 years in July.
Yeah. There is a reason, because every person who's going to hear this is going to think, I love Bill. And there is a reason that Bill has been married this long and his wife is very secure in the relationship. Because Bill, you are such a gem. You are like honestly, I'm like, oh my gosh, I know people. You're a facilitator. You're so welcoming. You're inviting. Your voice is just like warm hug. And so I love your stories. They make me so happy. So here is the final question. And I always get it. What is you know what it is. What is your favorite guilty confession? What's your favorite guilty pleasure?
Oh, you mean even beyond caregiving?
Doesn't matter. What is your favorite guilty pleasure? Because I
gave a confession about my therapeutic life.
I love your compassionate deception. Yes, I need to know your favorite guilty pleasure.
Well, yesterday, as you may have noticed, is my birthday.
Yes, I did see that.
I think I'm going to miss out on one of them because there was a great pie place on the other side of town that had a wonderful Boston cream pie.
Oh,
now that, because that is a decadent dessert. I don't eat it all the time, maybe once a year. But here's a little story. And it's related. I'll find it somewhere. If I see a box of donuts, like at a meeting, right? Don't tell me if there's a Boston cream in there or Bavarian cream. Oh, really? Why? Because it's the only one I can't resist.
Well,
Bill, you are so sweet. Thank you so much for coming on and being with us today. Thanks for sharing your mom and about your passion for Alzheimer's and the work that you're doing today as a consultant. We're going to list lots of links.
Lots of resources.
Lots of resources because Bill has shared lots with us and there's a lot more that we can all learn from him.
So I also want to thank Bill. You're such a wonderful person. And I know, Bill, you do groups virtually as well. So you don't have to live in Oregon to get to work with Bill. And so I just want to make sure folks know that. And you'll find, again, all his socials and everything will be in our show notes, and make sure you check that out. That's totally.
And a great example is I have a Facebook community, Dementia Support Group for Caregivers with Bill Cohen, which has members from most of the states and provinces and representatives on 6 continents.
Oh, wow.
Okay. Well, I can tell you these sisters are already group members. So anyway, so everybody, thanks so much for listening in to Bill and JJ and I, and we will catch up with you next week when we confess again. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Well, friends, that's a wrap on this week's confession. Again, thank you so much for listening. But before you go, please take a moment to leave us a review and tell your friends about the Confessions podcast. Don't forget to visit our website to sign up for our newsletter. You'll also find the video recording of all of our episodes on the Confessions website and our YouTube channel. Don't worry, all the details are included in the show notes below. We'll see you next Tuesday when we come together to confess again. Till then, take care of you. Okay, let's talk disclaimers. You may be surprised to find out, but we are not medical professionals and are not providing any medical advice. If you have any medical questions, we recommend that you talk with a medical professional of your choice. As always, my sisters and I at Confessions of a Reluctant Caregiver have taken care in selecting the speakers, but the opinions of our speakers are theirs alone. The views and opinions stated in this podcast are solely those of the contributors and not necessarily those of our distributors or hosting company. This podcast is copyrighted and no part can be reproduced without the expressed written consent of the Sisterhood of Care, LLC.